Yeah, I did. That's why I'm reading it. Because I was good at that. How you spell. Because I was trying to memorize it.
Call to order this October 9th meeting of the North Allegheny School District. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Starting with our calendar review. Our meeting tonight, where we will have our emotional support program review presentation. Then 2 weeks from now, on October 23rd, we will have our regular voting meeting, and we will have our enrollment and facilities annual report that night. We'll start this evening with reports, and I will turn it over to Dr. Allen.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Warner. I am pretty pleased to introduce the team that has been working on our emotional support program, and they are excited to present before the board. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. DeLuca, who will get this presentation.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Hyland stated, we are very excited to be here tonight. As many of you know, this work, the majority of this work took place last school year. When we knew we were fortunate enough to have Dr. Frohnapple join us, she has extensive expertise in emotional support programming. We decided we'd like to push this back just a little so that we had an opportunity to have her eyes on it and for her to work with our team before presenting it to the board. So I am very pleased to introduce her and the team that put a lot of work into this. There are some that are here and some that are not, but to those that came tonight, teachers, coordinators, and administrators, thank you for coming and supporting this work and our program. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Frohnapple.
Good evening, everyone. Like Dr. DeLuca said, we're very excited to share this work. We do have the coordinators passing out some handouts. Sometimes an emotional support review like this, the full document is almost 100 pages, boiled down into 10 minutes or less can be difficult. So we did bring a couple of visual aids for everyone that you're welcome to take a look at or ask questions about. But like Dr. DeLuca said, this is work that I'm very passionate about. I started my career as an emotional support teacher in an alternative program, and I've spent my entire life working in behavior support, working with students that have significant mental health challenges. So I'm excited to do this, but I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to the team that is here, specifically the coordinators that began this work last year prior to me getting here. The lion's share of the work, the research, and the meetings, the time, all of their hard work and dedication into getting this together. I came in at the very end and just added a few things, and they did a beautiful job. So thank you. So we wanted to make sure that when we did this presentation, we had our strategic goals in mind. And thinking of the balanced scorecard, all of our recommendations regarding the emotional support program will follow our 5 goals. So what you'll see as we go along this evening, when we start to talk about recommendations, those will align with all 5 of our strategic goals. Some of them will align more closely than others. But quite frankly, it was important to us that we make sure that we are reporting on those things that we are accountable for right now. So having said that, the program review committee included all of the wonderful people that you see here, including some of the people that just showed up for us tonight to provide us some moral support. So this work happened throughout the school year last year, throughout the summer, and it included everyone from people in central office to our coordinators, principals, some of our teachers, paraprofessionals, our positive behavior support specialists, and our school psychologists. So there were many eyes on this project and many people that contributed to the work. And for that, I'm very thankful. And I am, as we talk about sort of the scope of the work, the one thing that I just like to keep in mind as we go through the process and go through the presentation tonight is prior to coming to North Allegheny, I worked for the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, and before that worked at the patent office. And the one question that I got more than anything was, can you tell me where there's a good quality emotional support program in Allegheny County or in the state that we could go to? And unfortunately, I could never say, go here. My goal with this review, with our recommendations, and with this entire program implementation is to say that North Allegheny will be that model. And my hope and its sincerity is that we support our students behaviorally and academically for that success in a challenging world. So with that, Dr. Harding, I think you're going to start your portion of the presentation. We have a couple people presenting for us tonight because we didn't wish to have to hear my voice the entire time. So.
With that being said, we are all very excited to have you here because we are all very passionate about the emotional support program in different capacities. I'm going to talk a little bit about the purpose and the scope. Obviously, when you have an endeavor in front of you that's as important as this one, it's important to have a very structured purpose and a very narrow scope on exactly what you're looking for to get to that point of excellence or improvement. And we feel that through the process, we have evaluated the effectiveness of the program, good and bad, and utilize that to identify the areas for improvement. We always celebrate the successes, but we also want to make sure that we're improving in the areas where we can to help kids. We ensured alignment or are looking to ensure alignment across the middle level, across the high schools, and across the, obviously McKnight is the only program for the elementary, but across the district as well, so that there's a continuous programming set of steps going from elementary to middle level to high school. We recognize the program performance and the fact that we need to we recognize the program performance current, and we want to facilitate program performance going forward that, as was stated earlier, is at a higher level, at a state of excellence. Next slide, please. As we move through our assessment, we utilize several program assessment tools. We did an extensive review of research, and it's important to throw a wide net when you review research because of the fact that if you just take a snapshot, you often don't get the full picture of what is out there and what's available to you and what is available to the program. We use stakeholder surveys. We surveyed parents, teachers, administrators. We did survey across the county, all 41 school districts except for Pittsburgh Public, and of course the North Allegheny administrators, teachers, and parents. We also used the quality indicator of emotional support programs, which I believe was passed out to you. That was given to every school and that has a program in order to evaluate the emotional support programs through the teachers and through the administrators that are working closely with the kids in those programs.
And most importantly, we're going to spend just a little bit of time talking about who the students are that we serve in the emotional support program, and what that looks like and sounds like. And who best can do that other than two of our educators that are teaching emotional support in emotional support specialized classrooms right now. So Ms. Schoenfeld and Ms. Shepherd, please come on up for your portion.
Hey, hi everyone, thank you. My name is Samantha Schoenfeld. I'm one of our emotional support teachers at NAI. And so we're going to go over who are some of the students that we are working with within the emotional support program. So when we look at all these bullet points and we concise them together, we're looking at students who have emotional behaviors, and access to the curriculum can therefore be, can look a little bit different. So without supports and interventions, that access might be tough. So we need those things in order for students to be able to have the most success that they can and access their classes.
We also want to make sure the students that, so some of the students that we were speaking about, all the students that we have an individualized education program, also known as an IEP. This is just a written statement that shares what their programming in school will look like with their needs and their goals. There are many members that take part in making this plan. They're listed here: parents, teachers, administrators, school counselors, school psychologists, behavior specialists, paraprofessionals sometimes. Not everyone, not every kid has every single one of those on their IEP team, but that can be some of the members there. Each role, every member plays has a very important critical role in defining the goals and outcomes of the plan. The strengths and needs are developed through an evaluation that is done, and the educational team develops goals that will be monitored through progress monitoring and as well as educational benefit reviews.
Okay, so now that we talked a little bit about what we did to put this information together, who our students are, what the requirements are, we want to talk a little bit about the program objectives as a whole. And then we'll get into our specific recommendations for moving forward. So we think about our program objectives. Like I said, I really would like people to be able to point to North Allegheny to be the North Star for a quality emotional support program. And so in order to be able to do that, we need to talk about improving outcomes for students that have those non-academic barriers to learning, right? So our goal is to help remove those barriers and ensure what we call career-ready skills, or what Pennsylvania refers to as career-ready skills, to be ready to be successful in that challenging world. We're hoping to increase the numbers of expected or appropriate behaviors and decrease those unexpected or inappropriate behaviors. We want to reduce exclusionary discipline because we know that exclusionary discipline leads to negative outcomes long-term, right? If I don't have a good experience in school, if I'm not connected to someone in school, then it's hard for me to want to continue to come to school every day. So we want to make sure that we're reducing our instances of exclusionary discipline, and we want to make sure that our students have access to 3 tiers of support. So you might have heard of a multi-tiered system of support, or an MTSS process. We want to ensure that students have access to universal supports. All kids get access to supports to be able to talk about being career ready. We want to make sure that kids have access to those supports in their neighborhood schools, in addition to specialized classrooms like the emotional support classrooms we talk about that are in the different settings throughout the district. Most importantly, we want to talk about making sure that we can do what we can to meet students' academic, behavioral, and mental health needs. So that might mean increasing supports in some areas, but most of all, when we look at that very first bullet, we talk about improving outcomes. And I've heard Dr. Highland talk about the balanced scorecard many times now, and he talks about plan, study, act, and do. And what we want to do is use data teams to make sure that what we're doing is effective, and to make sure that we are making that change. Somebody said to me a few days ago, and it struck me, I hope that we're not just maintaining students in our program. We hope that we're growing them as a result of being with us. And so I really want to make sure that we use our program objectives to leverage that. Not only are our students coming to us with these needs, but they're leaving us with those academic and behavioral and mental health skills that they need to be successful and career ready in that role. So having said that, the program objectives, like I said, are very much aligned to our goals. Dr. Harding's going to talk about the first goals. We'll go through all 5 and then we'll take questions.
Next slide, please. I talked a little bit about in the first slides about having a direct purpose and really focusing on excellence. It's not an accident, obviously, that our goals, as you will see, are going to align with the strategic plan goals and comprehensive plan goals that have been set forth by the board. The first goal, obviously, goal 1, academic excellence. One thing that we want to be sure that we are doing is we are aligning to the QIESSP. If you review those charts, you'll see that if a program is aligned in completeness with the QIESSP, it gives you an opportunity to see that the program has aspects that are there for career readiness, for academics, for behavior modification and behavior support for the kids who really need it. Academic instruction and support. We want to make sure that we have our kids ready and able to go into the classrooms, the general classrooms, and access that core curriculum. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we have robust resources to intervene on academic skill deficits and behavior deficits, because often kids will run into a wall in the classroom behaviorally and then not be able to access the academics the way that they should if they don't have these resources and supports. Creating specially designed instruction supports that are based on student need. It was very important, obviously, in our IEPs and our specially designed instruction within those IEPs. Providing rigor while ensuring that non-academic academic barriers are addressed is something I addressed earlier. Obviously, we want to keep the bar high academically, but we want to make sure that kids are supported behaviorally so they can feel successful and feel good about themselves.
So I'm going to talk about goal 2, continuous learning. And just for ease of discussion, I will call them the quality indicators rather than the QIESSP. So alignment to the quality indicators happens in the area of collaboration, communication, and professional development. One of the things that we talk about, especially with regard to our emotional support program, is it can't just be a one and done. We can't just do one session of professional development in a half a day and expect teachers, paraprofessionals, and the educational team to have the understanding of behaviors that they need to be successful. So what we'd like to do is talk a little bit about specialized behavioral training for paraprofessionals supporting these specialized classrooms. Make sure that we have clear and consistent collaboration with mental health agencies. Many mental health agencies support our students that have needs, and we need a clear line of communication because many of our students have treatment plans outside of school. If our treatment plans align with functional behavioral assessments and positive behavior support plans, and we can work with parents and families to ensure supports, we're going to be seamless in the implementation of that plan, but we're also going to triangulate our support so that kids are hearing the same thing at home as they are at school, and for us, that's critically important. Making sure that we have some potential signs of stress and or trauma, some understanding of that throughout the educational school team, and really being prepared to be that first line of contact and resource for our students. You know, we want our students to say that they have a trusted adult. We want them to make those connections and make sure they have access to those folks throughout the school day. Next, we're going to talk about the continued collaboration, communication, and professional development by data teaming. We can have the best written functional behavioral assessments and positive behavior support plans, but if we're not checking in with data to make sure students are making growth, we're going to have some difficulties. So we're going to work as teams to collaborate and design and deliver interventions that are truly making a difference for kids. We're talking about implementing universal screening and understanding screening data to make sure that not only we understand children's needs, but we're using that data to help make instructional and behavioral decisions for our students. And lastly, and I think most importantly, real job embedded professional development and supports. Spending time in classrooms with teachers and educational school teams to make sure that kids, when they do have a little bit of a blip, and they will, because our children have sometimes significant non-academic barriers to education. But when they do have a blip, persevering through that blip and having the support they feel like they need to be successful. So in terms of continuous learning, that really is the gamut of our program recommendations. When we talk about goal 3, empowering students, I'm going to have Michelle come back up and talk about that.
All right, so when we look at goal 3, empowering the students, we're really looking at, are you prepared for life after high school? When you're handed that North Allegheny diploma, that's powerful. So do you have those skills that then you can transfer from here out into the community or whatever you're going to? So the one thing that we definitely, or many things that we're looking at, but again, do you have the career ready skills? So are we looking at all of those things in alignment to taking the things that you learned here and being able to apply them out? But we also want to make sure that the IEP is sound. So the behaviors that we were looking at when you were in middle and beginning of high school, are they still applicable to what we're seeing? Transitional planning in the IEP becomes very prominent once you get into 9th grade. So again, is your transition goals aligned for what you want to do when you leave? And again, really effectively collaborating with families, with outside support teams, with our county and community resources. Again, to make sure students have all of these things in their tool belt for when they leave, they're ready to be awesome human beings, right?
All right, and looking at goal 4, we are also looking to make sure that our spaces that our students are learning in are appropriate for them and meets the needs that they have. So just making sure that those classrooms are flexible for them, using any of those types of supports, making sure that they, classrooms maybe have some calming corners. Those are areas that they could go to maybe regulate so that they are ready to get back to that academic excellence and talking about all the core academics and things like that. Another thing in these, for these flexible spaces to have sensory room supports and collaborating with other individuals like occupational therapists and physical therapists, that is their expertise that they can provide us with supports and things that we can do to help the students regulate, get back to work.
Okay, back to me, and we'll finish with me here. Goal number 5, we talk about safety and wellness and alignment in the quality indicators to supporting social emotional instruction. For us, that's going to be a focus on Pennsylvania career ready skills. You do have a copy of the career ready skills continuum in front of you. And those skills really are all about developing those things that our students need to be employable adults, right? So you can see that there are related employability skills there, dependability, decision-making, critical thinking, working together, building relationships, and looking at that solid foundation of tiered supports so that we're providing that to all kids. We're thinking about providing the specialized supports for students that need it. For us, we really want to take a look at researching and implementing assessment tools to accurately determine specific need. So you can see along the continuum, it talks a little bit about awareness of self and other preferences in kindergarten. Well, sometimes our students don't know what that is all the way up in middle school. I know when I taught middle school, my kids had a hard time saying, this is what I need, or this is what I want. So we need some assessments that help us pinpoint these skills. Because if we just say we're working on career-ready skills and we're not pinpointing specific skill deficits, we're going to have a hard time making that change that we want to make. So we talked about making sure that we're researching those assessment tools and implementing curricular materials that align with the career-ready skills continuum to ensure that we have curriculum that aligns with the skill deficits, but also helps to grow our students. So if you think about, in conclusion, what we really want to do is take a look at aligning our recommendations, again, with those strategic goals and making sure that our efforts are data-driven, using lots of assessments, showing progress. Sometimes when we're working with students with emotional behavioral disorders, it's hard work and it's hard to see progress. But if we have data and we're meeting and teaming and showing our educators and families that progress is being made, even if it's slow, then we can persevere through that. We're hoping to use data to be able to do that, make those adjustments that we need and make sure that we're collaborating and communicating as educational teams to address current gaps in our program. But I think the thing that I would probably say more than anything is there's some really amazing things that are happening right now in the emotional support program. We want to take the amazing things and make them that much better. And we think that these recommendations will help us get there. So everybody said stick to 10 minutes. I think we kind of came close. But really, just thank you. Obviously, this is an area that we're all very passionate about and firmly believe in, and we feel like these recommendations will help make a really great program that much better. So, what questions might you have?
Anyone have any questions or comments? Dr. Gibbs?
Thank you. I don't know if it's working.
Yeah.
Oh, they're working. They do, okay. So first of all, I want to commend the entire team for doing such a wonderful, thorough job of this analysis and giving us such a good and informative report. So kudos to you. I personally think this is a really important topic, and I'm glad that you're all taking it as a really important topic. A couple of things that I really like. One is the focus on career-ready skills. So it's not about just providing supports, but providing supports that makes kids transition better and be ready to transition out when they have finished their public education. So I thought that was great. Having North Allegheny be a leader that other districts will look at and point to, and we will lead the way. That instills within me, it should instill within everyone, pride. We take this seriously and we want to do this right. We want to be the best. So a quick question for you. I've read through the report, and I also applaud the fact that you not only do you point out the things we're doing really well, but you also point out some things that need to be improved. And among those, a lot of them have to do with education, helping our staff become more educated and develop the skills that they need to provide the supports, and also just increasing awareness among our staff of all the different resources that are available. So some of those things seem like they can be addressed very quickly. And so I'm just wondering if you have a plan in mind and a time frame in which some of that low-hanging fruit is going to be addressed.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Dr. Gibson. I sure do. Thankfully, I'm also working with our behavior specialists, our positive behavior support specialists. And we're working through a process right now where teachers and educators, not only that are included in the emotional support program, but really for the entire district at large, have access to those behavior specialists. And what we're doing is creating a process where the behavior specialists start with specific behavioral tools to have more efficient conversations about the actual needs of students. And then we're taking those needs and placing them in our tiered triangle of supports to help get access to students with interventions. The other thing that we're doing right now in our 5 pilot sites is doing training on those advanced tiers and building data teams to be able to look at this data and say, right now, this is what this student needs. So let's place them in this intervention, tier 2 or tier 3, to get them support. The most important piece of that particular process is what's the data to suggest that they need that intervention? Then what's the data to suggest they're making progress in that intervention? And most importantly, what's the data to suggest that it's time to exit that intervention? So it's not a place that they go to live forever. They go get support, grow skills, and head back into either general education or another program, maybe during their win time, to provide that support. And that's happening right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Well, I would like to highlight a couple of things that jumped out to me in the report, which I appreciate that we had the opportunity to move forward and the presentation. But there was a decrease in outside placements from 8.1% of special education students in 2013-14 to 5.4% in 2023-24. And I just thought that was fantastic that we have more of our students in our district, in our schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to highlight that because well done to accomplish that over that relatively short period of time, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. That's definitely the hard work of our coordinators and really our goal by providing these supports. We can build up the supports that we have, we can bring students back and potentially even keep them in their neighborhood schools. And that's really what our focus is.
Another thing I found this interesting was you asked administrators, teachers, and parents essentially, how satisfied are you with the emotional support program? And the parents were relatively much more satisfied than the administrators, and the teachers had the lowest levels of satisfaction. And I was happy that our parents are relatively satisfied, and I was concerned for our teachers. And so I hope that we're gonna try to figure out how we can help them, because I think if they're more satisfied, it's only gonna be more benefit to our students.
And I completely agree, and that data jumped out to me as well. And I think that that really is that focus of goal 2, providing that job and embedded professional development. Because I think sometimes, unfortunately, our educators feel like they're left on an island to figure problems out on their own. And we want to, through these recommendations, make sure that they don't feel like they're out on their own, that they have support in us as administrators, and support in our behavior specialists and our school psychologists to make sure they have what they need to tackle these significant challenges.
And when I clicked around through the report and some of the other attached resources, I don't even remember what I was looking at or what the category was, but one of the thoughts about someone reflecting on some of the data was, oh, well, NAI is doing really well on this, but NASH isn't, or maybe it was vice versa, but and then there was like comments of, okay, we need to look at both these schools and see like, why is this one doing better? And so we can put that together. And I was so happy to see that, because I think it's something that across like all of our special education programs and all of our education programs in general, that there's some great things going on in different buildings, and how can we take that and like, I'm happy to see that kind of cross-building interaction and really investigating, how can we take what we're doing good at really over here and broaden it to the whole district.
Yeah.
So that was something else that excited me.
Yeah, thank you. I think we talk about it as pockets of excellence. We want to take those pockets of excellence and make sure they're systemic supports.
And then the one parent satisfaction category that was significantly lower than the others was post-secondary transition. And so I was wondering, can you share like maybe some more details on how we help students with that post-secondary transition? Maybe either go into more details on the career readiness, rubric, or maybe other things we do in addition to the stuff that's listed in that rubric.
I sure can. I'm going to say that we recently added another coordinator, Dr. Spiller, and she is working specifically in the area of post-secondary transition. So number one, we have a person that's dedicated on our coordinator team to ensuring that both she and Mrs. Kochek work together in the middle school and the high school to provide those opportunities from 6th grade all the way up to age 22. So that's step one. And one of the things that Dr. DeLuca started last year was a partnership with our friends at PATN, the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, and the Allegheny Intermediate Unit to implement a program called Transition Discoveries. And that Transition Discoveries program and process is going to help us create further linkages district-wide, not just in the emotional support program, to career opportunities and opportunities out in the world for our students. So that's sort of step one and step two. And then alongside that, building these career-ready skills. Because I think one of the barriers sometimes is, oh, but they're not ready for this yet. We don't want readiness to be a barrier. We want students to go and engage in these meaningful opportunities and help them along the way with these skills.
Thank you. I like hearing how intertwined they are, having opportunities and then being ready for them. Thank you all so much for the report and all your work throughout the past year to put this together. Thank you for everyone coming tonight, even if you weren't one of the assigned speakers. We so appreciate you being here and all your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we will move on to our student activities report. We will start with Ms. Faber.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This week and last, we have been selling homecoming tickets. The theme is A Midsummer's Night Dream. Everyone is getting excited for the festivities that Class Council has to offer on October 19th. I hear that there are a lot of butterflies, dragonflies, and flowers. To boost school spirit in preparation for the dance, Class Council is organizing a Spirit Week. The drawing and painting 3 classes are now working on their tiger paintings, which will later be voted on by all of the sophomores. The winning painting will be displayed in Tiger Hall along with all of the previous winners. Best Buddies, which is a global volunteer movement providing support and community for special needs students, closed the registration on Monday. They are hoping for a great year of participation. Best Buddies pairs a neurotypical student with a neurodivergent student for the year so they can hang out, find common interests, and form impactful friendships. The NAI's Multicultural Student Union, which is run by one of our counselors, Miss Lewis, will be having their first meeting tomorrow on October 10th. Speech and Debate is kicking off their year with outstanding numbers yet again, with Mr. Moore as their coach. NAI's fall play is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The school is looking forward to their upcoming production. The cast has been working very hard during their after-school rehearsals. Last week and this week, teachers got the chance to nominate one of their classes that best demonstrated NAI's key principles: RPM, respectful, present, and motivated. PBIS, the ladies, some of them were sitting here today, then went into those classes and had a raffle for the students to spin the tiger wheel and win a prize, encouraging positive behavior.
Thank you. Mr. Toronto?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Warner. Many clubs and organizations, including AFJROTC, Speech and Debate, DECA, NA Rowing, Orchestra, Student Council, and Key Club, will be participating in the October 18th Homecoming Parade. This year's theme is holidays, so each float will represent a different holiday. Students in the fall musical will rehearse every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday in October. This year's fall musical will be The Phantom of the Opera, and students are excited to share their talents in art with the district and community. To enhance the audience experience, this year's fall musical will have a pit orchestra and band as a part of their show. The first show is on Wednesday, November 6th at 4:30 p.m. NASH service clubs, including NHS, Interact, and Student Council, are in the process of organizing a fundraiser for hurricane flood victims in the South. Today, I hosted Dr. Highland for his very first superintendent luncheon of the school year. We covered a wide range of topics from sports to musicals, and over 45 students attended, which is a new record. In addition to my report, this month there will be 2 items for board consideration: the approval of the Children of Eden for the NA Spring Musical, and permission for the district speech and debate team to travel to Dallastown, Pennsylvania for a tournament. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Toronto. Any comments or questions on these items? Mrs. Blackburn?
I'll just comment on the musical Children of Eden. It in no way it's trying to lead a person toward any religion or anything. I just want to make that clear in case the title seems a bit misinforming. But a lot of students are going to be involved, so we're very excited for it.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. Mrs. Blackburn, would you like to make your comment on Best Buddies?
Sure, I will. So it was one of my favorite programs ever in North Allegheny. My children, I considered it a life-changing program for my children. They were involved in it, and I truly think that it's something that made at least my one son want to continue mentoring other children and students. It's a wonderful, wonderful program that I think everyone should be involved with. And it's not only teaches life lessons, but I think that it can form a path for people ongoing. It's just a great group that that mentors some of their students, and they do fun trips and things too. So it can make you learn things and make you want to help others, which is part of what we should be doing in the world. So great program, life-changing.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. I know you're passionate for that program.
Yes.
Any other comments? Okay, then we can move on to the finance report. Curriculum report. Ms. Harding.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This month, there are three items for board consideration in the curriculum report, and they are the Camp Connolly Honoraria, permission for the high school orchestra trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and permission for the high school choir trip to Disney World and Orlando. There are also 2 items for information only this month, for an exchange student next school year and a student teacher request for this spring.
Any questions or comments on these items? Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I just wanted to thank the 65 teachers and staff who joined our 5th graders at Camp Conakry for adventure and learning recently. Without their being willing to take on this adventure and challenge, the special experience wouldn't be possible for our students, and we're very grateful that they were willing to do it for the kids. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question, Dr. Highland. I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I know many band families are curious why the orchestra trip and the chorus trip are on here and wondering when the band trip will be on this agenda.
I'm not sure, but Mr. Harrison might know. No, I don't have that information yet, but we will get that to you.
And
Unless Mr. Duramo, do you?
It'll be on the November board.
it won't be until November.
They were a little late getting it in.
And things happen, I understand that.
So,
I'll just say, if this would be an item that I would be supportive of putting on the voting meeting if there was an opportunity to do so. And if there's not, I completely understand, but I'm just gonna put that.
I know it's April, I think, is when the trip is. We're also trying to teach people to get their requests in a timely fashion. But we will definitely take under consideration.
I appreciate that, and however it works out, it's fine by me, and I understand, and I appreciate the adherence to submitting things in a timely manner. All right, moving on to the finance report, Mr. Winiger.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. This month, there will be 3 items for board action and 2 information-only items. 3 actionable items are the student expenditures for August 2024, budget transfers, and the accounts payable. And the information-only items will be the ending cash balances for 30th and the 2000.
Any comments, Mr. Winiger?
Just briefly, September, this is our first one really for this new budget cycle. Projecting approximately $1 million surplus. So as we did last year, as the year continues, we will identify opportunities and risks that could help or hurt the overall budget. We continue to track those and bring those to everyone's attention. But right now, we're projecting about $1 million surplus at the end of the year.
Excellent. Any other comments on the finance report? Okay, then we can move on to the human resources report. Ms. Britton-Dozier.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. At our voting meeting this month, we will have at least 9 voting items in the HR folder. And those items include resignations and retirements, appointments, wage status changes, professional contract, leaves of absence, honoraria and club activities, recognition for additional education, supplemental contracts, and tuition reimbursement for additional education.
Do you have any comments?
Just a couple quick comments, please. The HR folder is pretty straightforward, but I'd like to make a comment relative to item number 1, resignations and retirements. As always, thank you to the employees of our district for their work and efforts on behalf of our students and community. And relative to items number 6 and 8, thank you to the teachers and staff who are consistently willing to commit their time and efforts to provide our students with club activities and extracurricular activities. Thank you.
Any other comments on the human resources report? Dr. Gibbs.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I actually put this in the BRF5, but I'll ask you here. So I noticed in item 6 that there are quite a few individuals involved in something called the induction program. I don't know what the induction program is. I was wondering if someone could just inform us what that is.
Mr. Gibbs, we did respond in the BRFI, so that the answer is in there. But I will kick it over to Ms. Tracy, who actually answered it in the BFR.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, because I turned it off, sorry, earlier.
The induction program is run in coordination with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. It's basically, I mean, in summary, and I'm sure that academic educators to my left are cringing a little bit in my layman's summation, but they can jump in. It's a training and support program for new educators. So it's a requirement of PDE to go through and complete prior as part of one of the elements to go from a level 1 certification to a level 2. So what you're noticing in the honoraria item there are the more experienced teachers who have signed up to be that work with paired with the induction attendees or participants throughout their program. So it's generally first year educators, and it is open to long-term substitutes who work the whole year as well. The programming is run through our professional department.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the properties and supplies report. Since Mr. McClure is not here this evening, Mr. Winiger, can you present these items?
Sure, I'll do my best. Mr. Clerk impersonation here. So there are three, that was the word I was gonna use. We have a couple neat 3 items here. There's, the first one is, retractable awning. It's gonna be installed at People's Elementary School. So this one is neat because, the kids need some shade, and the school principal asked for this, and the PTA got some money together, so they're gonna actually reimburse us. But to install this retractable shade on the school, which is pretty great. The second item is just a boring bus purchase. It's a little earlier in the year than normal, but we're gonna try to get our bus purchased in sooner rather than later. There's still some supply chain issues. It seems to creep into the bus manufacturing process. And then the last one is we're just some of our buses have run their, I think looking at the mileage on here, the oldest bus or the most used bus at 181,000 miles on it. So we got use of it. So those are the items.
Thank you, Mr. Winiger. Any comments on the property and supplies report? Ms. Hardy?
Thank you, Mrs. Winter. I have a question about the buses. There are large buses, there are smaller buses, medium-sized buses. That's different this year than?
That is correct. The one bus that is a medium-sized bus is a wheelchair bus. And we're going to order that bus with a special type of flooring that allows us to add and remove seats as necessary. This vehicle will be able to be configured to haul regular students as needed. And then should we need it for wheelchair services, it's a very quick and easy process to remove those seats and add wheelchair positions to that bus. It's also, I thought it was something we needed, basically for anytime we would have an emergency situation at a school. We would have to rely on an outside contractor to get to our school to be able to evacuate those students that would be in a wheelchair. And it could be a very long time before that could happen. So we have that vehicle at our facility that we can evacuate those students immediately. I think we would be doing a good service for our students. And then the smaller buses, those buses have just, they're beyond their useful life. So it's time to replace those buses. And also, since we reduced the number of bus routes that we actually have this year opposed to last year, I thought it was time to start getting some of those smaller buses updated since we didn't need as many big buses.
Thank you so much, Mr. Morgan. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I'm very happy to hear about the wheelchair bus. That's exciting news. Would that bus be able to carry more than one student on a wheelchair in that bus?
It can be configured up to 5 wheelchairs.
That's great news. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on property and supplies? Okay, then we can move on to the student services report. Dr. Gibbs.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There is only one item for board action in the Student Services Report, and that is a transportation agreement with CARES of Western PA. There's one information-only item. There are two students from LaRoche that have requested student teaching assignments in North Allegheny.
Thank you, Dr. Kids. Any comments on your folder?
No.
Anyone else with questions or comments on the student services report? Okay, then we can move on to the technology services report. Since Dr. Sinkoviak is not here this evening, Mrs. Blackburn, will you handle her report, please?
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Yes. There's only one item that we will be voting on next week. It is an interactive panel purchase. For those who have been around for a while, you probably have seen in our classrooms, we have the Promethean boards, and like all technology, we need to do some upgrading and get some new things. So we're coming in under budget at $361,610. However, the price will go up a little bit because that doesn't include installation. But that's what we're looking at purchasing. Thank you. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. Any comments on this report? Okay, then we move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hyland.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There are 10 items for board consideration this month, and 5 are informational. The ones that will be on the agenda are second reading of policy 000, 001, 002, 004. I'd like to thank the board for all the feedback that they have given throughout the past few weeks on that. In addition to those policies, we also have professional seminars and professional development. The addition of girls flag football as a varsity sport. The new North Allegheny Foundation trustees. We have 2 advertising agreements, one with Spark Signs and Graphics, and another with the NA Athletic Hall of Fame. And we also have broadcast rights letter of agreement. We have 5 informational items. First reads on policy 003, 005, 006, 006.1, and retirement 006.1. We have the wrong numbers there. Yeah, we have the wrong numbers.
3.1. We can fix that for next week. Any comments on the superintendent's report? Okay, then we will move on to our speakers on non-voting items. No one has pre-registered to speak, but if anyone in the audience would like to come to the microphone, you can speak for up to 2 minutes. Mr. Harrison?
Good evening, John Harrison, 1473 Hedwig Drive, Ellison Park. Looking through the board agenda for tonight, we did have an explanation on buying of the new school buses. And it's a great idea for the one with the handicap, especially with, I can see, with seeing what's coming up next year with potential new students joining the marching band. It could be very, very useful for on the road trips. As far as what's going on for the 3 middle schools, could somebody advise how many of those new boards we're getting for roughly $120,000 per place? And why would we not get this quoted with installation? It's got to be something that's done professionally. And if we're going to be having something like this in a board folder, it should be done complete, not buy the equipment and then think about installing it at a later date. As far as there was another thing under about the advertising. There's a $30,000 chunk of money that will be made for advertising ads at the Athletic Hall of Fame. Where does that money go? Does that go into the general fund, or is that earmarked for something within the district? And then the last item is the used buses. We're getting rid of 14, we're buying 9 new ones. And the question comes down to is, do we have no more 2007 buses? Are they all gone? Or are we going off of mileage? How is that? How do we come up with
the mix of how we get rid of those buses. And, are they of any use? Can they be sold instead of scrapped? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to come to the microphone tonight? That leaves closing items. Does anyone on the board have any announcements or reminders? I would just like to thank the A.W. Beatty Career Center for hosting us tonight. I really appreciate the Executive Director, Aaron Keesley, and for the wonderful job he does leading this incredible school, and for Dr. Watkins for giving us a tour tonight. Mrs. Blackburn and I had the opportunity to serve here. It truly is a wonderful place. And I would just, the one thing I really love to plug Beatty because it is the kids here really enjoy their experience. When I come here for open house night, it's a Thursday night, it's after school. These students come back to this building in their free time to greet prospective students and tell them how much they love these programs, how it is their favorite part of their day. They are doing what they love. They're not sitting in a desk all the time getting lectured on things that they don't care about as much. The co-op opportunities, I don't believe students would be coming back in their free time to sell this program to other kids if it were not just such a great program. So I hope there are people online watching this evening, and maybe this is a great choice for your students. And seeing Dr. Durham, Mr. Durham.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to follow up. They're finalizing documentation paperwork for the band for the Kentucky Derby Pegasus Parade, which is scheduled to take place April 27th. 2025. I believe the accommodations will include staying in Mason, Ohio, but the actual parade event will be in Kentucky. So we're expecting that paperwork to come through for finalization.
Thank you, Mr. Dorimo. You just got me off the hook with my daughter this evening.
Okay, no problem.
And seeing no other comments, I adjourn this meeting.
But they